All right, so everybody listening, if you're a first timer on the podcasting sites, whether it's just the audio or the video on YouTube, we appreciate that. Please subscribe, share this, and definitely get this out to as many people as possible. We appreciate that. We're doing very well with that. So I appreciate our younger listeners, but also our older listeners, which is growing to very big heights. So I appreciate them too. If you're listening to us on one of the 30 radio stations that does broadcast these interviews, appreciate that also. And then tell your family and friends, whatever market you're listening to definitely check out our show. We do all kinds of different interviews on different people that are doing amazing things. So thanks so much, whatever platform you're listening to. Kelly Bohnhoff, she is a doctor, and she will be talking about, well, let me even, before we even go into this, let's talk about what she is. And this is a mouthful, Kelly. So I'm going to try to get through this the best I can, reading off our computer screen here. She's a registered nurse, marriage and family counselor. She's a national certified trauma therapist, certified legal nurse consultant, co-founder of the Josephine's Clinic. And did I miss anything?
Nope.
Okay. Well, Kelly, Dr. Kelly, thanks so much for coming on. She does have a book that's going to be coming out soon. It's called Beyond the Trauma Drama. It's cultivating the sacred nature of families to healing. So again, that was a mouthful. We're going to talk about everything in the kitchen sink that I just described that you do, Kelly, and have done. But thanks so much for coming on the program and speaking to the listeners today.
I appreciate that, Rob. I really do. Families are so brilliant and brave and beautiful. And one of the things I noticed in all these years, personally and professionally, is they don't have a good sense of that for themselves. And
Yeah.
so, what I want the listeners to know and anyone viewing this is that there's been a huge misunderstanding about who our families are and what some of those struggles have been about. So I'm excited to be here, and we can talk about whatever you like, but it's just a joy to have the opportunity to share the information.
Can you talk about what that intergenerational trauma is to just start off?
Sure. So the way that I define trauma, because everyone throws this word around, and you can look at the word's definition from a lot of different sources. So yes, I'm a registered nurse. I knocked on that door to see could I find some information about what's going on with the body and the mind,
Yes.
related to what's going on in childhood. Then I knocked on psychology, so becoming a licensed marriage and family therapist. So what's going on with the dynamics and the patterns in these families and in my own family? Knocked on that door. The door I hadn't knocked on yet, though, was the door of spirituality, or the lens of, well, let's say that for the purposes of discussion, that we do live in a vibrational universe. In other words, we're all energy, we're all electromagnet, and we can draw to us whatever we're thinking, whatever we're feeling, whatever we're saying, and whatever we're doing. And when you think about, and we've heard a lot about the law of attraction, right?
Mm.
Everyone is really interested in that law, and they wonder why, where's their car, or where is their new lover, or where is their $1 million, right? And so as I began to, after 35 years, I did hit my own wall, and I needed to take a moment because I crash landed across what I call three subject areas. The first was health, the second was wealth, and the third was relationships. And when all
Mm.
of those collapsed at the same time was when, for me, I knew I had come to a different point in my journey. And I had a dream. And it was this dream that allowed me to open up my mind, not to just what science has told us about intergenerational trauma, but what does spirituality have to say about it? So, what happened when we came into this particular experience? So, here's what I've learned and understood so far, Rob, about my own experience that I want to share. The first is that we're energy, and the mind, body, and spirit is meant to stay in balance throughout the lifetime. So, for me, trauma is any life experience that causes a shock to mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual balance. So we choose our parents coming in. We actually have a planning session, and we come in at the same karmic vibrational level as the people who we are in our families with. Now, we have to remember there is no past or future, really. We live in a linear time frame based on what we've understood. But really, we are eternal beings, sacred beings on a spiritual journey, having a human experience. And so the only time that we need to worry about right now is just now. So you and I are creating now in this moment. So we had a meeting with our parents and our siblings and our generations ahead and in the future. And we all said, what would we like to learn this time? What is it that we want to help each other with? Now, from the moment we're conceived, we have free choice. So what happened in my own family is that I had the oldest of four children. I had three responsibilities: to keep my mother healthy, my
Mm,
siblings safe, and my father happy. And through that moment, from the time I came out, I was already in kind of some dire straits. So my vibration was already vulnerable. I call it the vibration of vulnerability. And at that point, the adversity that we experience as children, or our parents are experiencing, or their family as a whole are experiencing, we all have this vibration together as a unit of vulnerability. And because we begin to think kind of in the judgment and the negative and the not kind words and the unhealthy choices and whatever, it draws all of those experiences toward us to kind of validate and reinforce the fact that we're not worthy, we're not enough, or we're not lovable. And so when an individual in a family begins to feel that way at so little, when you're so little, and then you have more littles to come in, and then you've got parents that forgot that they were sacred too, now you have a combination of souls that are attempting to, in my view and in my experience, do one thing. It's to awaken and remember the sacredness of who each other is, and find that love, compassion, and forgiveness for self first. Put your own oxygen mask on first, and then be able to see your family as doing the same, trying to figure out, going back to their sacred nature. This is a very unusual, not unusual, but not talked about much way of looking at intergenerational trauma, because it's echoed for millennia. I call it the echo of evolution. And I have spent so much time in my own family of generations, and then in generations of other families, where I see the pattern of the merry-go-round of survival. And we can stop here and talk about that in a minute, but let's chat a little bit, Rob, about this
hmm
particular lens. So I see trauma as any life experience that causes an imbalance in a shock, really, a distress to our mind, body, and spirit, staying intact so that we can always move through life from our inner guidance system and our intuition. So as life was happening to me, the way it felt as a little girl was my dukes were always up. Life was coming at me so hard that there was just no way to know what decision I was making. I was just trying to stay on my feet. So when the trafficking occurred, I was already vulnerable at age 10. And
Yeah.
so that pulled that particular, we're going to call it contrast. So we have contrast and challenges in our lives as each person, but also as families. And it really helps us to discover who we are not, or what we do not prefer. So this is a very different way of seeing it. And I just wanted to let everyone know and to hear the words that I say as it relates to, you are much bigger and more powerful and more resilient and stronger than you can even imagine. We come in with amnesia, and we've just forgotten this sacred nature. So our families are a big part of the awakening. What I've noticed is it's very difficult for families to awaken because of the intensity of the adversity that children and families experience in life.
Can you talk about the trafficking? That seems like that's very under the radar. It's a big problem in this country, but even beyond this country, of course. You talk about those issues?
Yeah, trafficking, as someone who has been just immersed in that her whole life, trying to understand how that happens,
Sure.
I'll just briefly talk about the under the radar point part of it. Um, I think it does happen in families. I think I'm going to say that out loud because it is hard to say, but I think it is something we have to talk about. In the situation that I was in, I went to my girlfriend's house for an overnight. And what I didn't know was that her brother and parent were involved in that kind of activity. And so, what does that look like when it's just down the street? What it looks like is you may go to an overnight, you realize that you're trapped in something you don't understand, so it is sexual exploitation. They manipulate you to believe that
Just to stop you for a second, how
yeah,
old were you at this point, just so the viewers and listeners know?
I was 10.
Wow. Okay.
And so you're caught at that moment in an impossible position in the sense that if you're a child who's already vulnerable and don't feel worthy and loved and understood, traffickers already understand that you're vulnerable. So there's a manipulation there. And then because I was already in a situation where I was very protective of my own siblings, all they really had to do was to threaten me, not for my own um, safety, really, but what they would say are things like, I will hurt so and so, or I will grab another girl if you don't do something or other. So that's where the manipulation was for me. And so that where it goes into the merry-go-round of survival. So people say, well, Kelly, gosh, my goodness, that's just down the street. And so what was traded then was the sexual exploitation, but also so they would trade goods and services. So money would exchange hands, or people would trade things like shoes, or if it was a teenager, for instance, another teenager, then they would trade things that were important to them for certain experiences. And so trafficking within families also happens, and I've been there where a mother and or father traffics their children, and this is a very under the radar thing. The laws around trafficking and money that exchanges hands, that's the ones we hear a lot about with the stings, and the girls are in the van and they're going across the highway and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about a deeper, more hidden, secretive type of trafficking that occurs in our families. It's closely tied to incest. And it's something that is very difficult in our world to talk about. So for those of us as awareness or consciousness who made a choice to come into this existence, this lifetime, to experience vulnerability, and even though we may not have signed up for this specific experience, we did experience it. And
Yeah.
it's a part of the understanding of these lower vibrational energies and emotions, and then trying to find our way and navigate our way through into the courage. I think the turning point is the courage, and then into the hope, into the resiliency, and then into the space where I'm sitting with you, talking with you now about that.
How did you come to terms with this spirituality and really bring that into your life, and, really forgive people that really made your life a living hell for quite a significant amount of time?
Yeah, I love this question, Rob, and it is the root of, it really is the most important question you may ask me in this interview. So here's what I want you to know is that, so trauma, drama, the reason why it's said that way, if you think about drama being the dynamic replay of adversity manifesting in anguish. So if you have anyone in your theater, your play, as you as the creator, that is causing this drama, this anguish, this repeated, what is this again? What is this pattern again? What is this person here for? I'm attracting a person, a place, a thing, a situation, or circumstances that wants to reveal itself to me so that I can heal. So the first thing I had to know is that any hurt that I felt from anyone about anything that was coming, what I perceived as toward me, wasn't about them at all. It was about me. So they are mirrors of your own reflection of how you feel about you. So if forgiveness is something, if an action occurs and you look at it and you say, I wonder what this is supposed to help me heal, that's a very different question than WTF is going on here, right? And so if you can hold this vibration of curiosity and noticing whatever and whoever and whenever any of this trauma drama is surrounding you, then I do three things. I stop, I drop, and I be. Kind of like stop, drop, and roll when we were kids, when someone was on fire, right? Although I never saw anyone on fire. So I stop and be still. I drop and I breathe 3 times deeply. And I be in the moment. And I ask myself, my inner guidance, my own spirit, soul, what is this helping me heal? Because anything around us is just a reflection of us and how we're feeling. And that was the most important thing that I learned initially. And over time, I have had energy healing through acupuncture and Reiki and shaman to help. I had soul loss. So I was able to pull my soul energy, my entire soul back into alignment. So this energy healing, I can't talk about enough. It's the complement to modern medicine. It can be done in complement. And it really helped me to open up to this stillness that lies within us, that intuition. So anyone or anything that's showing up for you, Rob, in your life is a gift. And what you have to do is decide, what is this helping me heal? What within me feels unlovable or unworthy or not enough? Because that's what's happening. You're restoring your own sacred nature, your own empowered being. And it's been torn down in family and in education and in society and in all of the distractions and all of with families right now, they're overwhelmed, overburdened, and overscheduled. And until they're still, until they can tap into that light that they are, I call it the shift, the lift, and the shine. And now I used to cuss like a sailor, and now I say, are you shifting me right now? Instead of the other way. So you're shifting, you're
Right.
wondering about it. So that's how I started, was realizing I'm actually creating the theater of my life, and it's here to help me understand something. And as I started to have more compassion for myself and my journey, and gave myself time to be still and to listen, to do things that brought me joy, then all that was in front of me began to dissolve, because faith and fear, it can't be in the same place. So these
Right.
higher levels of joy and happiness, as you stay in those higher levels, what you notice is that trauma drama just goes away. I keep thinking of a field of dandelions. If you see 100 dandelions in a field, do you see weeds or do you see a million wishes?
Hmm.
And it really is about that. It really is that shift. And so that's my encouragement to you, is that when the forgiveness of self happens, then the forgiveness of others is much easier, and you will know that it's true forgiveness. So that's what I would say to support your question.
Well, let's end with this. And, for people listening, again, Dr. Kelly Bohnhoff, and we're going to be talking about the book that's going to be coming out in just a second. We know it hasn't came out yet, but when it does come out, people should go out and buy it and look into it, Amazon. And I do want you to tease all your website and social media aspects too in just a second. But before we get into that, last question, just talk a little bit about the book. And we've heard a lot about what you've went through, but a little bit about the book and what you hope people get out of the book when it does come out. We do hope that you guys buy it too.
Yeah, and it's an interesting title. The word sacred isn't seen a lot in our culture, but sacred we are. And so what is the book about? It's about understanding what trauma drama is. They are connected, that we are addicted to it as a species, as a human species. Trauma drama is a distraction. It really helps us cope. It's everywhere. And as long as we're out in the world in some trauma drama, whether it's in our own families, in our communities, or in the world, we are less likely to tap into our own sacred nature. So what's the book about? The book is about how we got to the trauma drama, what it looks like, and how to navigate our way through from balancing our human and sacred natures in order to be the love that we want to see in the world and to make this turn. And the world is awakening to its own sacred nature, which is why we're seeing all this turmoil right now. But what I want everyone to know is we're heading in the right direction. And this year is going to be a year filled with more joy, more questions about what can we do to help our family be healthy and loving. And this book will give a different perspective on how to do that. And my hope is that as it comes out, because it's still unfolding, that it'll resonate and it'll be practical, and that people can do things very easily in their everyday life to make this shift.
But as we end, again, for people listening, Dr. Kelly Bohnhoff, the book is Beyond Trauma Drama. Definitely check it out when it does come out. It hasn't came out yet, but it will be coming out this year. Can you tell people the website that you have and where they can find you on social media so people can follow you when the book comes out?
Sure, and I'm happy to send those links to you along with what the book looks like. OneSacredFamily.com. And when you go there, all of my social media things will be there too. So, and I'll get those to you, Rob, and you can put them in the show notes if you like.
Sure. Yes, please. OneSacredFamily.com. Very easy. This is not tough stuff, ladies and gentlemen that are listening. And again, before we end the show, please subscribe to us and like this show and share it to as many people as you can. We try to get our interviews out. So these people that do amazing work, that do come on the program and talk about their life stories, get out to as many people as they possibly can. Again, Dr. Kelly Bohnhoff, Beyond Trauma Drama. Definitely check her out when that book comes out. OurSacredFamily.com to check her out. You can find her on social media, on the website. Just check out all the links there. Dr. Kelly, this will not be our last talk. I really appreciate you coming on, and thanks so much for being flexible with my insane life the past year.
No problem. I'm here anytime, and have a great rest of the year.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, 1 second. I had a split screen, so